So first step in our project today is all of this needs to get out. So we're just gonna clean out the trunk. Now that it's empty, we are going to take some measurements so we can build a little organizing area for the back of the trunk. So I'm just gonna measure how big my trunk space is, where I want it to go, and go from there. Now, as I'm making my measurements, this depth measurement, I only measured from the handle back. You can see the handle kind of sticks out like 2 inches or 3 inches, and I'm not gonna be able to go all the way past the handle. So I'm just starting like right there where the handle would sit. I'm also gonna draw out kind of like a floor diagram of how I want it, because I have this little compartment right here that you can open up and store stuff inside of. And I wanna make sure that I can still open this and access this fairly well. So I'm actually gonna leave it open. There we go. I'm gonna leave it open so that way I can see how wide I need it. And then also like where the measurement starts. And I'm gonna create that right here. About 6 inches is how much room I need to leave it open. So I'm gonna mark that here. And from where my measurement would start to my door, I have about 8 inches. So again, I'm gonna mark that here. And then I can do the math. Like this is the full length, so then I can minus 6, and this is how long this front piece will be, minus 8, and this is how long this additional piece will be. Again, so that way I have access to that little cubby right there. But otherwise, I can start drawing up my framework and deciding how much wood I'm going to need. And there we have all the measurements. This is my kennel, my trunk space, as well as the floor plan that I kind of want to have for this structure. I'm going to draw out my framework and try to figure out what supplies that I'm going to need. So this is going to be my main frame for both the top and the bottom of my, I guess you could say, box. And then I'm going to put circles everywhere that I'm going to put a stud or like a beam that would go up between. So there would be one of these on the bottom covered by a sheet of plywood. Then beams coming up with the same thing repeated on top with another sheet of plywood. So I obviously need a beam in each corner of the structure to give it good support. Like I said, there will be dogs on top and luggage on top when we go on trips. So I want to make sure that it's sturdy and it doesn't just like break. So then I'm also going to put some pretty much at every joint. I am being careful to make sure that all of these joints that will be going down are even, because I would like to be able to put some kind of a drawer inside of these spaces to hold my shopping bags and car tools, different stuff like that. But that way I can hold, you know, all of my other extra stuff in my car and keep it organized while also having the flat surface on the top for luggage and for the dogs when we go on a trip, or for groceries when I am out and about in town and I don't have to worry about whatever's back there. I can keep it all nice and organized. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. So here's all my drawings and measurements for this. I do have one more set of measurements that I'm gonna take. Originally, I was thinking about making my little platform a foot tall, but now I want to make it the same height as my chairs when they're laid down. So I need to measure that, and I will show you that right now. So here's the trunk area where this is gonna go. And like I said, originally I was just gonna make it to where I had enough room above it to put my kennel, but I know that I'll still have plenty of room if I do what I would like. So I want to measure this right here where the top of my seat folds. That way when the unit is in the back, it's not any higher than that, so I can still load like wood or whatever if I need to all the way in. It won't be crooked, it'll be almost a flat surface the whole way through. So I just want to make sure that the whole thing is even with the seats when they're folded down. So I'm just going to measure that. So I did just make a correction in my measurements. Originally, when I was thinking everything was going to be a foot tall, my vertical supports were going to be 7 inches tall. That way with the vertical supports and the finished platforms, it would total to 1 foot. So being that it is going to be 2 inches shorter, I need my supports to be 2 inches. Chaos, really? But then I need my vertical supports to be 2 inches smaller as well, so that way overall the measurement will be 10 inches tall. And by the power of math, I figured out that I need 6 of these. Thank you. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I am actually gonna trace my shape onto these. It's just, I think this is 1/2 inch plywood. Yeah, I think it's about 1/2 inch plywood that I already had at the house left over from another project. So instead of buying another sheet of it, I figured I would use this one first. And then this one, actually, I don't know if you can tell, we've used it as a backdrop when we've cut holes and everything. So it does have some little drill marks in it and some holes. But I'm gonna make this the bottom platform, so it's not gonna matter that much, you won't see it, and use the one that doesn't have any holes as my top piece. So I'm just gonna measure out and draw out my shape. Okay, so now I have all my lines and measurements drawn out on both pieces of board. I am going to cut those out just with the regular circular saw, but not yet. First, I am going to start marking all of my frame and cutting my frames and my supports and whatnot. Serenity, quit crying. You puppy, quit cries. The dogs are about 4 feet over behind the fence to the backyard, so when they see me, they want to come out. But anyway, I'm going to start marking all of my little beams and start cutting them. So I wanted to give you guys a little tip when you go to pick up wood. This is just a 2x2 fir stripping. It's pretty cheap and inexpensive. I think they're like $2, maybe $2.50 a piece. I didn't get to show you at the hardware store when I was getting the lumber, just because I have my baby with me and you're not really supposed to film in there. So when you are picking out the wood, you want to make sure that, one, it's appropriate for your project. This has plenty of stability for what I need it for without being super bulky of being a 2x4. And in my opinion, a lot easier to work with than say a 1x2. But when you pick out any kind of plank wood, whether it be a 1x2, a 2x2, a 2x4, a 4x6, whatever it is, you always want to make sure that you are looking down the piece of wood to make sure that it's straight and it's not bowed. So the easiest way is literally just to look down it and make sure that it's straight, and then turn it and look down it again. That way you can see if it veers at all, or if it's warped. If it is, just put that piece back. There are plenty of places that will use the warped ones and don't care. I personally would much rather have it be as straight as possible. For all of my projects, it's just a lot less of a hassle if you do it that way. So I'm going to measure and mark my posts, and as I cut them and put them to size, I'm actually going to lay them on my boards as if it was like the frame on top, just so that way I can make sure that I have all the pieces that I need. I can kind of measure as I'm going if I need to adjust any measurements or anything like that. So. So here's another trick when you're doing multiple cuts, instead of doing a cut, putting it in, doing a cut, putting it in, and you have different cuts. What I like to do is I like to just write it on the end of my wood. That way I know this one is 25 inches long, or this one is 42 inches long, and I can just kind of keep working and cutting all my stuff at the same time, and then doing with it what I need, depending on what size it is. Now I'm going to start screwing everything together, and I'm using 2 drills. You can use one, but I'm using one with a drill bit on the end and one with your standard like screwdriver end. That way I can pre-drill the holes that the screws are going to go into. It just helps the screw go in a little easier and prevents the wood from splitting, especially when you have smaller pieces of wood. It just helps keep it from splitting. This part isn't necessary, but I traced my frame onto my boards, that way I could see where I'd be screwing later. And anytime that you are cutting with a circular saw, you want to make sure that
you are using something sturdy to lay your piece on, but also make sure that the piece that you're cutting off is able to free fall. Otherwise it can cause the blade to kind of get stuck and kick back, and that's a lot of times where people can get hurt. But make sure that you're using protective equipment like eyewear and just being safe about what you're doing.
Okay, so I have everything kind of mapped out. I've finished my 2 frames and my extra pieces. They're not screwed together yet. I'm gonna do that in a minute. But one thing I want you to keep in mind is what you're gonna use for the inside. If you're gonna use pre-bought bins, or if you're gonna make bins or drawers or something, just kind of keep that in the back of your mind when you're in the process of designing your layout. I originally was going to make like drawers for these, but I figured it would probably take up a lot of time and a lot of extra wood, and after already having laid out my stud work and everything, it was kind of hard to find something that was going to fit properly. So the best that I could find were these little tubs, but I think I got these at the dollar store or Dollar Tree, one of them. But they worked well. I did take measurements and bring a measuring tape with me to the store because, again, it was really hard to find. So I just am kind of placing them in where they'll go, just so I can double check that I have good spacing and they'll fit. Not only that, but they are lower than where my top will sit, so that way they're not hitting the top or running out of room vertically. And they all look pretty good. So now what I'm gonna do is probably the harder part, is attaching all of these. The way I'm gonna do that is actually up from the bottom. So I'm gonna go through my frame, through my plywood here, and then up into my studs, I guess you could call them, my supports. So that way it'll kind of pinch everything in like this. And then I'll do kind of the opposite on the top to where I go through my plywood, my framing, and then down into the studs and kind of sandwich all of it together. So let's get drilling.
So I have a little helper here helping me hold everything while I screw it into place. You can do it on your own, but it is helpful to have an extra set of hands. And again, I am using that double drill method to pre-drill my holes, my pilot holes, and then using the second drill to actually put the screw in.
Now I have all these drilled in from the bottom. So what I'm gonna do now is just quit. So now what I'm gonna do is put my framing down and then my second plywood on top and drill straight down through those layers into the studs to make it all one. This is my framing. I'm gonna put it here, and then I'm going to put my, then I'll put my other plywood on top and screw it all down.
Lucky me, my drill bit broke right here, so I just finished the project without drilling the pilot holes because I didn't want to waste time to go find a new drill bit.
One last step that I'm gonna do, because like I said in the beginning, my dogs will be on top of this for part of the time. I got a couple extra leashes, again, just from the dollar store, that I am going to create like a little tie down for them. Keep them safe in there. They're not very long anyway, but I'm going to kind of measure out about how tall my dog is, give him a little bit of extra room. Then I'm going to cut the excess part of the leash off and burn the end so it doesn't fray. Get it to burn with how windy it then my second one, since I do have 2 dogs, even though she's real small right now, I want to make sure that she has enough room to grow. I don't see her being much bigger than him, so I'm just going to measure them out to be the same. And this is just that way whenever they go in the car, I can hook this onto their collar, and when I open the door, they can't just like jump out and run, and they are secure in the back. The older one especially likes to try to jump over the seats into the regular part of the car, so this will help keep him in the back as well. And I'm just going to take some shorter screws and I think I'm going to put one towards the back and one towards the front. This is about where I want it to be, so I'm just gonna literally screw right through the middle of it. I actually think I'm gonna fold it in and screw through 2 layers of it, hopefully to give it a little bit extra stability. Uh-oh. That is one part that is hard when you screw fabrics or anything, is just making sure that you get through without getting too tangled. Wasn't quite the easiest, but it is secure in there, and I'm going to do the same thing with this one at about there towards the back. Where did my extra screw go? Uh-oh. Oh, it's right by your foot.
I think the leash did.
Okay. So again, I'm just gonna kind of work my way through the leash by hand first to try to find the spot that it'll go through easiest in between the fabric, and then just screw it through completely. Hold it where I want it. There. And there we go. I am going to sand the edges just a tiny bit and paint it. You can paint it with regular paint. You can cover it with carpet, like you can buy car fabric pretty cheap. It's like $20 for a really big roll of it, of carpet, like car carpet. So you can line it with that. I personally think I might be using bed liner to cover it. They have spray paint and like roll-on paint that turns it into bed liner, and I've used it on some of my other vehicles before and I really like it, and it'll make it to where I can sweep it out fairly easily and it'll still look really nice. So these I'll just kind of pull out of the way and paint around and set them to the side.
I did give this a coat of spray paint. This is just, you know, the cheapest Walmart spray paint. Just some things that way it kind of blended in with my truck. And this was the bed lining paint that I used for the top of it. And here is the final piece. And this turned out really well. It fits perfectly where I needed it to fit. and I'm excited that I'll be able to keep some more stuff in the back of my truck without it taking up a whole lot of space and rendering my trunk space useless.
And then as you can see down below, I have little baskets. In each of these baskets I have, this one is just some extra stuff, so I have dog leashes and a towel. And then behind I have another bucket. Oh yay, my sticker is coming off. I have to glue those down better. This one I have my fire extinguisher, tools, whatnot. Actually, I'm gonna move that one to the front. And I'm gonna put my cleaning basket behind my extras. So this one just has like my Armor All, my rags, my Febreze, just to keep everything nice and organized. Then back there, that tub is full of water bottles. This tub has my grocery bags, some extra toilet paper because you never know when you're gonna need it, and a little packet for the baby. It has an extra diaper, a couple extra diapers, some wipes, and an extra outfit for her. And behind that one I have my survival bucket. So this one just has a lantern, a little bit of extra food for us and the dog. Nothing too crazy. I wanted to make sure it was stuff that wasn't gonna go bad really quickly. This is a multi-purpose shovel. It has like a shovel, a knife, a whistle, a fire starter, like all sorts of stuff in that little packet, a hatchet, and then just a little flashlight. So, and then in my little compartment over here, I have, if I can get it open, I have just my little first aid kit right there, easy access, in case anybody gets a boo-boo. And I do have some extra space here, and back in there I can put something little if I wanted to. But yeah, there she is, all nice and organized, and still have plenty of room on top for the dogs, for luggage, groceries, whatever there might be. So thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video and want to see more of it or more projects like this, make sure you hit that thumbs up button and subscribe if you're not already. And yeah, I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.